I'm a tiny cartoon man, and I'm here to tell you about a game I'm working on inspired by Zelda, Hades, and Kingdom Hearts. First, let's start with an introduction. My name is Sean, I'm a programmer and a musician. I live around here, but I grew up around here, and I have 2 dogs. They're good dogs. Alright, the good part. So I said earlier it was based on Zelda, Hades, and Kingdom Hearts, but I actually played a little jape on you there. A little gaff. It's really based on much smaller indie games, Unexplored, Lena's Inception, and also Kingdom Hearts. The Unexplored series was made by this guy, who came up with a pretty good algorithm that generates what he calls a cyclical dungeon, using something called graph grammars. Don't worry too much about what that means, just know levels in Unexplored loop back on themselves and create interesting layouts that might seem handcrafted if you didn't know better. As an example, you could come up to a locked door, have to take a side route that leads to a tough fight that rewards a key, and move on through the level to see that it has looped back on itself to the area where you needed to use that key in the first place. Sometimes the locks aren't even open with keys. Sometimes it's a trap that needs to be switched off, or an obstacle that needs to be overcome with an item. It feels like real Zelda, but it's all procedurally generated. And the best part is, unlike some people, he shared what he did with the world in a lot of detail, which is very cool and based. The other one, Lena's Inception, was made by this guy. It's a similar situation. He developed something that he calls the meta-Zelda algorithm, based around procedurally generating addicting 2D Zelda-like dungeons. The part that's really interesting to me is how he achieved the addicting part. He implemented a design proposed by Calvin Ashmore in a 2006 paper describing procedural lock and key puzzles. To wildly oversimplify, in the paper, Dr. Ashmore talks about tension and flow, and how to keep a player engaged by gradually increasing difficulty, then giving a period of rest by lowering it. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It keeps you in the flow state, sandwiched between the Valley of Baby mode and the Get Good zone. And it actually works. Go buy this game and give it a try, and Unexplored 2 while you're at it. They're on Steam and could probably run on a smart fridge. Definitely worth your time. If you already like Zelda games, you can blow hours on these things and not even notice. So, procedural lock and key dungeon. Hades plus Zelda. We're still missing someone. The Kingdom Hearts part comes in from the combat. Also a little bit the world traversal. I'm mostly looking at Kingdom Hearts 2, but we'll pull some aspects in from the others. It gets some flack for being piss baby easy on lower difficulty, but if you've ever played on critical, you know how good the combat can be. Plus, I feel like the Kingdom Hearts community could, use some more content. Okay, let's go over the core loop. The game will focus on performing runs that should last about an hour from start to finish. I want players to be able to save mid-run, as I think we learned from Returnal people don't want to be locked into sessions that long, and these runs consist of 3 shorter, procedurally generated cyclical lock and key dungeons. Each dungeon, theme-wise, will be a temple dedicated to the gods of this universe, the aspects. And each temple will be randomly assigned to one of 4 biomes and one of 4 color schemes. They will have a randomly selected key item that helps with traversal and combat, a mini-boss, and a final boss that leads to the exit. Combat challenges and hidden chests will sometimes reward power-ups, a la Hades and Slay the Spire, that can change up your abilities, vary runs, and add that spice. A run ends if you die at any point, the lose state, or beat the final boss of the 3rd dungeon, the win state. Either way, when it ends, you lose all the items and power-ups you got during this run in classic roguelike fashion. Though you will earn permanent materials that unlock upgrades that you keep even when you lose. Hitting the win state gives you items that unlock harder boss battles. Think the Data Org fights if you know what those are. These will be challenged outside of the normal dungeon crawling loop, and will act as a roadblock to overcome to progress the story. Speaking of which, so progression will be driven by beating those high-level bosses you unlock through winning runs, of which there will be 5. 4 semi-non-linear main ones, and a final boss battle against the main antagonist. The story will actually be pretty simple, but to understand it, we'll need to dig into the world this all takes place in. Or rather, worlds. Behold, the hyper-octahedron. It's the 4D version of this shape, kind of like a hypercube is a 4D cube. This can be visualized as a whole bunch of this 3D thing stacked up in 4D space, which gives us our pseudo-infinite worlds to contain our procedural dungeons. In-game, these are called the living worlds, because it's where the living creatures of this world actually exist. It also has 6 vertices. I mean, not technically in 4D, but whatever, that's nerd shit. Just imagine that 6 of its corners opposite from each other contain an extra special dimension that is responsible for some part of physical reality. They're called the cosmic forces. Abstract concepts like light, souls, change, and darkness only exist in the living worlds as a result of these spaces existing. Things don't really live there, but living things can align themselves to a specific cosmic force by using magic from that force, behaving in a way that aligns with the principles associated with that force, or just being physically close to it for too long in space. Kind of like in World of Warcraft. In-game, this will be the explanation for why each biome can be one of those 4 different color schemes. Aligning yourself to a force, whether on purpose or not, makes you way more powerful, but going too far turns you into a monster. The cosmic forces aren't sentient, but they can manifest an entity that has independent thoughts and can enact some kind of will like a person would. These are the aspects, and they can freely traverse the multiverse and do whatever they want, usually to the end of making their force more powerful or more present, but not always. Finally, at the center of each cosmic force is a heart, the source of its power. Shattering and spreading the pieces of that heart far apart is the only known way to destroy a cosmic force. Still with me? Good, because in-game, the player's not going to need to know any of that. I don't like sitting through long lore dumps, so I'm not going to make my players do it. Instead, we're going to borrow the From Software method of hiding this shit in the world for players to find. The people who care can engage, and the people who just want to play can safely ignore it. The story, however, will go like this. We open with 5 of the 6 aspects together, led by Wakea, aspect of light and order. They're standing over the 6th and final aspect on the ground defeated. This is you, the player character. Moelani, the aspect of darkness, death, and dreams. With you down, Wakea shatters your heart, scatters it across the living worlds, which is where the name comes from, by the way. She shattered across all worlds. And you fade away. Some unknown amount of time later, you wake up in a ruined temple in a living world. It's filled with monsters. Where did they come from? How did you get here? How can you even exist again to begin with? The whole game revolves around beating runs to find out the answers to these questions. And regaining power by collecting the shattered pieces of heart to eventually confront Wakea again. And that's it. That's the outline for the game. I've been working on this in one form or another for just about a year now, and I plan on this being a long-term project that will take several years to complete. Especially considering I'm working full-time and playing with an indie band, so I don't expect to be able to put these types of videos up super regularly. But I will put them out as often as I can without sacrificing sleep or my ability to put quality work into the game. If you want more frequent updates, I will be sharing more regular, lower-quality mini devlogs via YouTube Shorts and on TikTok as I build this game out and implement features. I don't plan on getting into technical details too much in this series, such as code reviews or tutorials, unless they're really important to the point I'm trying to make at the time. If at any point in the future it seems like there's interest in that, we can make another series, but this one will be all about design. At the time of writing, the character movement is basically done. So next, I think we're going to go into art direction, animation, and the traversal system that we're going to use in the game. We'll look into how real art directors decide how a game looks, and how animation works together with movement controls to influence game feel in the different genres I'm blending. Well, that was a lot, but what do you think? Yeah.